It's been a quiet week in Lake Guatavita here in Colombia. If you excuse or make an exception for all of the politicking that's going on right now, we're in the midst of electoral season. Elections are the 29th of October for local and departmental elections. So these would be city council, mayoral elections, governor elections, and the elections for Colombia's equivalent of a state legislature, which would be their departmental assembly. And speaking of elections, there has been some, it's already kind of been reported about the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio in neighboring Ecuador. But Friday, the 6 Colombian assassins and 1 Ecuadorian accomplice were found dead in their prison cells there in Ecuador. The cases had not been resolved. Nobody has, we still don't know who the brainchild behind the assassination was against Villavicencio, who was an anti-corruption centrist candidate. It caused current President Guillermo Lasso to return from a trip to South Korea to deal with this crisis. And so obviously whoever was behind Villavicencio's assassination is quite powerful, with tentacles reaching into the prisons. And this, it's kind of sad what's happened in Ecuador. Ecuador used to be kind of a refuge back when Colombia was extremely violent back in the 80s and 90s. The early 90s, Colombians would find refuge in neighboring Venezuela and neighboring Ecuador. And Ecuador was always relatively stable compared, I'm talking about recent history, compared to Colombia. Even people from, let's say, North America and Europe found were building retirement homes in Ecuador. It was a great spot for surfers and things like that. But sadly, Ecuador is becoming more and more violent. That violence is connected to narco trafficking and has ties, of course, to the insecurity in Colombia, especially down on Colombia's southern border with Ecuador, because you get down there into areas like Nariño, areas like where the city of Tumaco is, and Cauca, and these areas in the rural south of Colombia. That area, the border with Ecuador, and then to the east, the border with Peru. These are very sparsely populated kind of jungle areas, and this is where you can find where illegal elements seek refuge. But anyway, there is so the assassinations and then the assassinations of the assassins in Ecuador, of course, has implications for neighboring Colombia. Moving north, Medellin's mayor, or now former mayor Daniel Quintero, resigns, leaving behind quite a mess. This has kind of been one of the, by far, most controversial mayoral terms in recent history. There's a scandal. There were reports that the prosecutors had an arrest warrant out for him. So in Colombia, you have the Procuraduría, and then you have the Fiscalía. So you have two separate lines of what we would call an attorney general or prosecutor's office. One kind of focuses on official corruption and crimes, and they go after public figures, and then the other one goes after private individuals or companies. And so if the Procuraduría comes after you, we've seen this tactic before where the politician resigns from office, that causing the case against him or her to move from the Procuraduría over to the Fiscalía, which of course caused a delay in the case, and then the Fiscalía might have a different attitude about prosecuting it. We saw Alvaro Uribe when he was senator. With the case against him, he resigned from the Senate, which threw the prosecution against him from the Procuraduría over to the Fiscalía as a move, as a strategic move. And it looks like Quintero may be doing the same thing. He just resigned with like 3 months left in his term. His term ends at the end of December. Um, and So there are charges against him. There are lots of complaints against his administration. According to him, he resigned to campaign for his cousin-in-law, his wife's first cousin, um, Mr. Upegui, I believe is the pronunciation of his name. If not, it's not intentional. And Mr. Upegui is running for mayor to keep the uh, Quintero's legacy or political philosophy or political movement alive. Though the polls say he only has about a 6% approval rating. Quintero was campaigning for him yesterday. It's important to point out that Quintero resigns. In Colombia, it's illegal for a sitting politician to campaign or to participate in electoral politics. So if you're a mayor or governor or president or congressperson, you can't do like in a lot of countries and say, okay, this is my guy, I'm going to campaign for him. So you'll see like um, if Joe Biden were not running for president in the U.S., he would nominate or endorse, not nominate, but he would endorse a candidate, um, that kind of thing. You can't do that down here. At least you can't do it legally. It happens. But so a sitting politician cannot come out or participate in the campaign of an aspirant, even if that aspirant is obviously on your side. Now, with Quintero resigning from being mayor, it kind of frees him from a lot of the actions against him, but it also frees him up to campaign for his cousin-in-law. And according to him, that's what he's up to. There are a lot of people who would disagree, but that's where things stand. Staying in Medellin for a moment, there was a nasty political assassination well, we don't know if it's political. There was a nasty double assassination last Thursday, looking like things are, I mean, the statistics aren't too bad in Medellin, but you're starting to see some things that look like the bad old days. And so there were two individuals, Didier Julian Galindo Agudelo and his brother Angel Enrique Galindo Agudelo were shot to death on Las Palmas Avenue, which if you've been to Medellin, no doubt you've been on Las Palmas, which is one of the main thoroughfares that leads up to the airport and the eastern suburbs coming down into Poblado through Las Palmas, which is the higher end, richer areas of the city. Now, the two brothers that were in a vehicle and they had campaign material for Lupita Cañas. Lupita Cañas is a candidate for the Antioquia Assembly, which would be like a state legislator in the U.S. So far, she hasn't come out and said anything at all. We don't know if the assassination was politically motivated. And one of the reasons I say this is because Angel Enrique, one of the victims, was kind of had quite a history, a criminal history himself for theft, fraud, and extortion. I guess the family was connected with the avocado agriculture out near the Magdalena River, which by car is about 4 hours east of Medellin, near, of all places, very near where Pablo Escobar's ranch was back in the 1980s, near the Magdalena River, and kind of like the halfway mark by highway between Medellin and Bogota. So could this have been revenge? Could this have been a former victim settling accounts with the Galindo Agudelo brothers or something else? Does it have something to do with Lupita Cañas and her candidacy? Hard to say at this point. We've been following this, and it caused a tremendous traffic jam. I'm sure many people missed their flights. It was already raining, but authorities are investigating the case, and we'll be following it closely to see what happened. Alvaro Uribe, former president of Colombia, Um, Former senator of Colombia is back in trouble. Many of you who follow these things will know that he got in trouble for uh, one of his political enemies, Ivan Cepeda. The charges are that Uribe accused Ivan Cepeda of some crimes, and then uh, the witnesses that were supposed to testify against Cepeda ended up testifying against Uribe, saying that he came and wanted to bribe them to make up false charges against Cepeda. This was a few years ago. You can Google the names Ivan Cepeda and Alvaro Uribe and Finance Colombia and read about the background. But, and this is one of those cases where I told you Uribe at the time was a senator. The Procuraduria came after him. He resigned from the Senate to cause the charges to fall over to the prosecutor's office. The Attorney General in Colombia at the time, Francisco Barbosa, was a friend and ally of Ivan Duque, who was a political acolyte of Uribe. So anyway, the charges kind of got stalled. They didn't completely get dismissed, but they were stalled for a few years, and Uribe's been living in peace and kind of running his political party, the Centro Democrático. But now, but last week, a court ruling has ruled that the charges against Uribe can go ahead. So that criminal case from that original riff-raffy with Ivan Cepeda is still alive. Ivan Cepeda is demanding justice, saying that Uribe tried to frame him and throw him in jail unjustly, and is quite active in the prosecution as taking the stand of a victim against Uribe. So Uribe is not out of trouble yet. We're going to see what happens as that moves along. These things move slowly, but they move, so we'll see. Getting away from kind of the dirty deeds and alleged dirty deeds and crimes and assassins and corruption and things like that. Last week, New York Mayor Eric Adams was in Colombia. He was up near the Panama border, the Darien Gap, up near Capurganá and Sapsuro, and on the Panamanian side, La Miel. I don't know if he actually went over to La Miel, but that's kind of right there on the border. And so the New York mayor visited Colombia. He also visited Ecuador and Panama. No, Mexico and Ecuador in this trip, I'm sorry. And the mayor reportedly was seeking, he was accompanied by the Colombian ambassador to the United States, who himself is from Chocó and the former governor of the Chocó department. But Mayor Adams, the purpose of his visit was to discourage illegal immigration and crossing the very dangerous Darien Gap into Panama, and for migrants that are making their way to the U.S. border with Mexico, hoping to cross into the U.S. Adams is right. It's very dangerous. You should not do that. I doubt very many listeners to Columbia Business Recap are in that process, but it is it's the wrong way to go about things. I understand that people can be desperate, but that's going from bad to worse. You're going to be victims of coyotes and human traffickers and smugglers, and it's a lawless area and it's a lawless process. It's very dangerous. It's dangerous because of the natural dangers, all kinds of super venomous snakes and things like that. There's no legal protection. The areas are mafia controlled. I don't know that the people who are making this trip are going to listen to Mayor Adams. It's noble of him, and I think that he has the right intentions. I don't know that he's going to convince a single soul not to make that journey, even though that journey should not be made. We can argue about all the real problems with immigration policy, and I would agree that in a lot of cases there are a lot of problems, but to simply walk through the Darien Gap and through Panama and Costa Rica and Nicaragua and Honduras and Guatemala or El Salvador, Belize, Mexico. You just don't do it. That's not. That's it. That's you're risking your life, and then you're going to get all the way up there, and you probably won't get in. And if you do get in illegally, you're not going to have any legal rights. So don't do it. There are better alternatives in life. So anyway, Mayor Adams was here last week at the Darien Gap. Technoglass, great company. As you guys know, we have a lot of esteem and respect for Technoglass, who is a faithful sponsor of Finance Colombia and Colombia Business News Recap, has taken the legal move to change their headquarters location from Barranquilla, Colombia, to Miami, to suburban Miami in the United States. Now, the company already trades on the New York Stock Exchange. The founders, some of the officers and founders have been in Miami for some time. And I would say part of that, I speculate, I haven't spoken to them as a matter of safety. But the company is still very proud of its Barranquilla roots. The operations remain in Barranquilla. The factories remain in Barranquilla. Nobody's losing their job. The administration, most of the administration remains in Barranquilla. But moving the headquarters, and you've got to consider that about over 90% of Technoglass's sales are in the U.S. of Colombian-made products, glass and aluminum products, and now the company's moving into vinyl as well. So the move really kind of makes business sense. It's nothing against Colombia. It's nothing against Barranquilla. It does provide the company, I think, some more legal certainty, and it also provides, I'm guessing, some tax advantages as well. Colombia is not a low-tax country either for individuals or for companies. So that move, the leadership of Technoglass was emphatic in pointing out that the move does not change any employment situation in Colombia. Nobody's losing their jobs. The factories, the manufacturing, the production all remains in Colombia. And Technoglass, they want people to realize it's very much a company with a proud Colombian pedigree. So speaking of companies making moves, IKEA, the Swedish retailer, furniture and home goods retailer, has opened their first Colombian store. They've been working on this for a long time. I think that the pandemic might have caused a delay, because they announced this something like 4 or 5, maybe 6 years ago. We wrote about it in Finance Colombia, but finally there's a store open on the north of Bogota. It opened to tremendous lines, people wanting to get in there. Surely lots of sales were made, but even people wanting to chismear, as they say in Colombia, or to just kind of look around out of curiosity. IKEA also has stores in the works for Medellin, which I believe will be in the Viva Envigado shopping center, which is a huge shopping complex on the south side of Medellin in the Envigado suburbs. Really nice area. And then I think that they're also going to open one in Cali. I don't know exactly where, but I'm going to bet it's going to be around Ciudad Jardines in the affluent south side of Cali as well. So I'm sure that the store is going to do well as it moves into Colombia. But it's already open, so they're up and running. Let's see. I think that we've covered everything. It's been a lot of times business news kind of slows down when we get into election season. So we'll see more. We'll see what happens after the elections. The actual week of elections, I'll be traveling. Our team at Finance Colombia will keep you up to date and report on things, and I'll come back with some analysis once I return from my trips. I'll be back in Asia, it looks like, most likely, and then also an event to attend in the U.S. But stay in touch, stay safe, everyone. Remember to stay kind, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.